from Harare. So she will turn on her mic and then ask the question.
That is great. I look for.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Okay, so what I missed out was the website.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So I'm visually impaired and
Oh.
I think it was on your screen. So can you please share the website with me?
I will gladly share that with you right away.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions either online or from those who are in the room that are interested in women, peace and security or youth, peace and security, and considering partnering with UN Women or other work that Fafali mentioned during her presentation? Great. Mr. Masimba, you can have the floor.
Okay. Just to find out, is there a way that we'll be able to get these presentations so that perhaps we can then be able to look at them in detail and see where we can connect? You talked about young people in all their diversity. I assume disability is part of that. But it would be interesting to find out if there are any young people's organizations specifically who deal with disability who are part of the network, but also I think critically then looking at perhaps then getting a presentation, going through it, and also finding out a bit more would be helpful.
Thank you very much, sir, for your question. And as I mentioned, the compass is evolving and we are really learning. And thank you for drawing my attention to the fact that when we talk about young people in all their diversity, we should make provisions for people who are visually impaired and with other challenges. Thank you very much. For now, we have youth-led organizations, but I can't, most of them work across a wide range of areas. I can't mention offhand if there's a particular organization that work on people with disabilities, but we'll be glad to have you. You might be the champion for that. So that's the beautiful thing about the compact. Once you identify a gap, that's why I'm here. Everyone matters. We see yourself in the compact. We'll be glad to have you. Absolutely. And I will share my presentation as well. I hope that helps.
We have some more hands here in the room, but perhaps we can give the opportunity to those who are online and are willing to maybe comment or share on the presentation. But just highlight that Masimba got himself a job to be a champion for the cause with UN Women. So I'll definitely Fafali, and you two can work together. Great. Anyone online who would like to share with us either comments or a question that's directly that's directed at the presentation we just received? There is Oliver Makambira. He says, very interesting work. We're very much interested to connect and work together to advance the shared agenda. Please connect with us. So if you're in similar work and you'd like to connect with Oliver, has just dropped his contact information in the chat box. I'll take two more questions from the participants here in Harare, and then we move to the next presentation, which will be from the Institute for Security Studies from Ms. Kujeke, who's here in the room. So two final questions from the room. I'll give you.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Cynthia. Thank you, Madam Fafali, for quite an informative presentation. Mine is just a question on, I saw you mentioned issues of youth engagement, agency and advocacy as part of the work that you're doing. So I want you to get a picture from you as a programming analysis. How engaged or how are young people coming through in terms of their involvement? I understand the issues of us having policies and having such platforms for youth involvement can only yield results when young people themselves are coming through and are getting involved and are willing to be part of the works that we are doing. So from from your perspective, how are young people themselves coming through to be part of the work that you're doing?
Thank you very much for the question. And I must say, the youth participation in the compact so far has been very encouraging. As I rightly mentioned earlier, we have youth organizations in the governance body that are championed the cause for almost the event we had on the sidelines of CSW, which was a great success. And we also have the youth organizations that are part of the compact are persistently in touch with the compact secretariat, and we are working hand in hand with them to develop the youth engagement strategy. So I must say, for so far, the youth-led organizations on the compact are doing very well. And even if you go to the compact website, you go to the blog post, you see a lot of work being done by the youth, and they are willing to share, they are willing to learn, they are willing to also teach others of what they've done so far. And just as Cynthia invited me here, it's a great form of youth engagement. She acknowledges that it is crucial. So I would just say that a lot of young people are very much interested in the compact. They are joining the compact day in, day out. And we are having very fruitful engagements with them as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Tino, for that question. And thank you, Fafali, for responding to it. The final question that we'll take will be from David, and we'll need translation. So thankfully, perhaps arranged for us to have interpretation. So we'll have the next question in Portuguese. David,
Great.
you may take the floor.
Good morning, sorry, good afternoon. My name is David Fardo. I'm from Mozambique. I'm the president of Youth Parliament, a civil society organization. So I'm also the general coordinator, of the Portuguese-speaking African countries. So looking for the compact as a general platform, I would like to ask for the inclusion of the Portuguese as one of the official language of UN and also of the African Union, because we can talk about the inclusion without including the six countries of Africa, or the six African countries which speak Portuguese as the official language.
Thank you very much, and well noted. As I rightly said, the compact is evolving and we are learning. All those points you are raising are things we'll take into consideration. So thank you.
Thank you very much, David, for that input. I will share with you that throughout the session we've been having here in Harare, David has been speaking in Portuguese, so it must have been Fafali's presentation that had him speaking in English. But thank you for highlighting that, and it's very important to be engaging and also look at inclusivity from a linguistic perspective. In the chat box, Mbali says she would love to work with UN Women, especially with the pact, and that is one of the reasons why we held this sensitization meeting, to actually explore which organizations are working in specific areas and how can we capacitate young people. So Fafali, if they reach out to you on LinkedIn or on other platforms, please note that this is the purpose of our meeting, and we'll have to map out ways in which we can collaborate. From the first questions that we had, I'll also arrange for you to share the presentation with us, and then we share it with all the participants, because that's been one of the requests. And to wrap up your presentation, maybe any final words you would like to share with the participants.
Okay, so for my final words, I'll say that we have the commitments on women, peace and security, youth, peace and security, humanitarian. Over the years, we've had a lot of normative frameworks. It's time for action. And we can't do it any better than a multi-stakeholder approach. Let's all join hands and push this agenda forward. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much once again for taking the time to engage with us. We know you're in a different time zone, and it's been difficult coordinating this because of other commitments, but we really appreciate you taking the time to just share with us about the work you're doing.
Thank you.
What the next presenter that we're going to have is here with us in the room, and it is Miss Mune Kujeke. She works for the Institute for Security Studies, and would like to hear from her, especially when it comes to the Training for Peace program. How can young people that are working in peace building be capacitated or engage in some of the activities that they have? So I will leave the space so that Mune can take the floor and engage with us.
Thank you very much. Can you guys hear me? Okay, that's perfect. So I'm very excited to talk about areas of engagement with Training for Peace, but more excited because Savannah is here. So she's part of this Training for Peace Africa team that includes NUPI and Accord and ISS. So the Training for Peace program is a capacity building program geared at supporting the African Union. So our main mandate is to make sure the African Union is supported to roll out peace and security issues, human security, but specifically for my job, rolling out the youth peace and security agenda. So the way in which we work is we support their requests in terms of what work they need done to capacitate young people like you. And most recently, we've been working with the Youth Ambassadors for Peace, all 5 of them. And we're very excited to work with Cynthia for Southern Africa, not just in the Training for Peace Africa program, but also our Pretoria office that focuses on Southern Africa as a region. But for Training for Peace, we're always willing to partner with the African Union, with African Union Commission, with the AYAPs in terms of having capacity building workshops and so forth. And we've done that last year. We partnered with them for sensitization workshops on conflict prevention and so forth, even security sector reform. So we want to continue to do that. And when you see these things being advertised, try to engage. And that's how we build a whole database on who's working on what in Southern Africa. And we always try to engage with young people bilaterally in terms of key issues when we monitor the trends for youth peace and security, so that if we're in your country, we're doing research and we want to highlight your work, we can work with you. But in terms of the Southern Africa region as well, we had a meeting with Cynthia, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, or is it a month now? Where we're very keen to work with the AYAP for Southern Africa in terms of key areas where our Pretoria office can support. So we're going to try to work with young people in the region for the NAP development through the AYAP. But please do speak to Cynthia about key priorities. She brings them to us. We hope that we can actually roll out something before December, 1 or 2 activities that young people in the region feel are critical, and we can support them through. We don't know what sort of activity it is, but then if we read through it and see that this is very important, we can actually help to support it technically and hopefully financially as well. So that's what we're currently working on. But if you have any requests, I might ask that we work through the AYAP. That's just how it works in the AU system, right? So we work through the AYAP and then we support the AYAP, and in fact, it rolls out to everyone in the Southern Africa region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mane, for sharing on the Training for Peace Africa program. Perhaps what we can do if you're logged in online is to just type, or any of the participants, if they know, just type the website or the link to the Training for Peace Africa program, so that those who need more information about this program can quickly access them online and also see what the program is about. The assumption is that the information would be on the Institute for Security Studies webpage for Training for Peace Africa.
We actually do have a separate Training for Peace Africa website, and then we have a Twitter page as well. You will find some info on the ISS website, but then the ISS website will also expose you to other youth work that our offices in Dakar and Addis Ababa are doing. But specifically for Training for Peace, we do have a T4P Africa website that also has all the work that we've been doing and what we intend to do, and other partners in their work as well. That's Accord and NUPI ISS.
Thank you so much for that clarification, Mane. I'll open the floor for questions in terms of how this program is done. If you have an organization or you're working within peace and security in the region, and you'd like to find out more about the Training for Peace program, this is an opportunity for you to ask Monet, and we engage as colleagues. So I'll open the floor for questions for her. Anyone in the room? Okay. There's a lady right behind me. She'll introduce herself, where she's from, and then ask a question.
All right, thank you. So we've started trying to roll out capacity building with the Youth for Peace Africa program since 2018, because that's when it was established. So the way we work is by AU requests. So if they bring a request to say, for instance, last year, they wanted a sensitization workshop on youth and security sector reform. So to us, capacity building in that regard is getting young people together. This was unfortunately online because of COVID. Those young people came together with us and with the AU to learn about what is security sector reform in the first place, who are the key players, and how do you fit in as a young person? How do you merge it into your work? How do you make it a safe space for you? So these are questions that young people have in their minds, right? But no one is there to explain. No one is there to link them up with the right actors in the field. So for us, capacity building is putting you at the same table with them, with a multi-stakeholder, population that will help to actually build your work. If you were not working on, for instance, on security sector reform before, you would now start to see what avenues are there. Where can I get the right, for instance, the AU has a lot of documentation on it. That's how you can actually be capacitated to be trained on what framework exists. Where do you fit in as a young person, and how can you take it back home and try to sensitize your own community? So at the end of the day, for us, that's what capacity building has been about. When the AU wants us to help them to actually reach out to young people, to teach them about the work that they're doing at the AU Commission in Addis Ababa in terms of certain thematic areas. But we're also open to, from our own research, we look at, if we write a policy brief, if the policy brief revealed that there's a gap in knowledge about something, we do workshop to actually get information out there so that everyone is well versed with it and knows how to actually confront policymakers on the issue.
All right, you talk about how to sensitize different youths, but I want to know about what are the channels that you use to actually market whatever you are doing, to what is the campaign you are using. Why am I asking this question? That why? Because actually I represent industry partner for universities, and we get lots of requests for internship, for placement, for opportunities. But actually, young people doesn't know where to go. They want to have opportunity, they want to participate, but they don't know where to go, where to find out those activities that you are doing. So it will be a great idea to have some streamlined channels, how we can distribute. You are doing fantastic jobs, but maybe we don't know what you are doing. So what I'm asking is, maybe you should plan how to distribute the information in a way so that everybody can get it.
Okay, thank you. So, because we are a research think tank, right? We don't really delve into advocacy that way, but when we get to engage, we do. So, for instance, last year, but this was before Chidom Pemba's time, we partnered with AYAP for a whole campaign called What Makes Me Feel Safe. And I think maybe 1 or 2 or even 3 people in this meeting were part of that campaign, where we said we can't even get young people engaged in peace and security issues if they don't understand what is it we're talking about and what is it that we can somehow offer them. We had young people send in videos talking about what makes them feel safe in their communities or unsafe. We made a collage of videos that we published on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and so forth. We had young people from as far as Somalia, Ghana, sending in the videos. And this actually created a bigger youth peace and security community, right? And like Cynthia said, there are all these WhatsApp platforms that we are part of. They became friends on those platforms. They began to create networks and, you know, exchange ideas of what am I doing in my country? What are you doing in your country? We obviously cannot offer platforms where we take people to say, we're taking a batch of 10 for internships and whatnot. We do advertise all that, right? We want young people to join us. I'm a young person working at the ISS, but at the end of the day, our job is to make sure that we get young people talking amongst each other and offering opportunities amongst each other. But do check out our campaign. It's still on Twitter. It's on YouTube as well. The videos were very useful. And actually, I think it was ending AYAP's term. But the main question that it was geared at was how much do young people understand peace and security anyway? And has it been really flagged through AYAP's term? And we're hoping to do the same as well for Shidom Pemba's term.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Monet, and thanks for those interesting questions that you shared. I appreciated that you were very specific on what you wanted to hear from the presenter. Monet, in her initial presentation, shared that training for peace is a joint initiative, and Accord, the African Center for Constructive Resolution of Disputes, is one of the think tanks that partner with ISS in terms of implementing the Training for Peace program. So I'll give an opportunity to Savannah maybe to respond to the question from Accord's side. What are some of the specifics that your think tank has engaged in terms of the activities they do in peace training?
Thanks, Cynthia. I'm glad that Monet mentioned that we work with ISS on Training for Peace program, which has a very specific mandate to support the AU. But Accord also works across stakeholder groups. So we also look at local and national stakeholders to work with too. If you're asking the specificities and sort of having a streamlined place to find out where you can get sensitization, capacity building, my greatest suggestion is to be active on the partner organizations like Twitter page or social media, because every event is advertised there. So when it's open to the public, it is always, you can just register and attend. I think it's quite difficult to say we must always be the ones to reach you. It's also asking the question, how can you also take action on that? So for example, we have been working with the African Union Youth Ambassador for Peace, or YPP office, to bring a series of dialogues to explore the continental framework for youth, peace and security. Because even the name is intimidating. It's like, what does that mean? The continental framework, how do we break it down? How does this serve me as a youth? So we spent last year exploring the 5 pillars of this framework, which is just speaking to youth participation, prevention, protection, partnerships and coordination, and disengagement and reintegration, as being the 5 key areas that the continental framework identifies as where youth can be involved and should be involved. Then having done that, we said that's not enough, because the framework also identifies cross-cutting issues that will impact the ability for youth to participate or be protected. These cross-cutting issues are things such as gender mainstreaming, youth inclusivity, a big topic of conversation at this conference, knowledge management, communication, and capacity building. So this dialogue series has just kicked off last month. It's every Friday of the month up until December. It is open for absolutely anybody to register. You will see the flyers posted on the AU website, on the AU Twitter, on Accord. If you follow us on any of our social media platforms, you will find it there. If you sign up for our newsletters, it will also be in there. So we choose a cross-cutting issue for each month to discuss and unpack, and that is part of also sensitization and awareness. So there is lots of action on the continent at regional levels, at national levels. It's really up to you to try and seek out, if you understand what organizations are out there and their mandates and what they're trying to achieve, it's a little bit easier to then seek out the kind of events you want to attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Savannah, for responding to that. In addition to what Monet said, and one of the issues you highlighted was the use of social media in advancing this. But maybe as we move to the next speaker, we also need to to have a conversation around perhaps young people who do not have access to social media, and how can they be integrated into some of the activities that either Training for Peace or other organizations are engaging with. And this is one of the conversations we've been having here in Harare, where we actually need to think of youth that may not be represented, or that may not have sort of the same dynamics that we have in the different spaces we share. The next presentation we're going to have is from Ms. Gugulethu Mkandla. Gugu works with a community-based organization in South Africa, and they do training for young people. But what is peculiar about this organization is that they don't just train youth, but they also focus on high scholars. So a lot of times when we speak of youth, we're speaking of sort of young adults, but we forget to realize that for you to be a youth, you have other stages that you've engaged with. How do we then get to a peaceful 18-year-old if we don't engage with young people when they are in schools? And this is their focus. So Google, I'll ask you to share your presentation and share about the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia, for that wonderful introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As Cynthia mentioned, my name is Gugulethu Mkandla. I'm just going to start the presentation. Okay, awesome. Yes, my name is Gugulethu Mkandla, and I'm the project coordinator for Engage South Africa, which is an organization aimed at promoting youth leadership and civic participation in democracy. Now, just for context sake, why promote civic engagement for peace building? Like a lot of you may know in this space, peace building includes a variety of components: conflict prevention, management, conflict resolution, transformation, and post-conflict reconciliation. For us in the South African context, our focus is mostly on conflict prevention, and to some degree, living in post-apartheid South Africa, post-conflict reconciliation. As a result, this is where we feel civic education and civic engagement come in, really to develop the civic knowledge, dispositions, and skills for dialogue and peaceful participation amongst young people. So just a little bit of research and numbers. Why we work with youth in South Africa is because they form a significant percentage of the overall South African population, and they're the most affected by the rising unemployment and lack of opportunities in South Africa. Despite common narrative, young people, youth, the entire cohort care deeply about inequality, corruption, and issues of social justice. But they are highly underrepresented and excluded from social, political, and economic decision-making, and they're becoming increasingly frustrated that their grievances are going unheard. So really part of the research has also shown that they don't really receive any adequate education for meaningful leadership and civic participation. This is where we as Engage South Africa come in. And really our vision is a connected, democratic South Africa co-created by civically engaged youth. And our mission is to actively promote youth leadership and civic engagement to strengthen the democracy and human rights in South Africa. And overall, our goals are really to equip youth with knowledge, skills, and confidence for active leadership and civic engagement, whilst empowering them and supporting them to be co-creators of community-based action for human rights and democracy, and connecting them to platforms such as these and decision-making spaces where they can exercise their civic rights and responsibilities. So really how we do this is through these 4 programs that we have. We have our My Voice program, which you'll hear more about in the upcoming slides, which is really an 8-session leadership and civic education program aimed at helping young people develop the knowledge, skills, and confidence to find their voices and as youth leaders and become active members of their schools and communities. As Cynthia mentioned, a lot of these programs are we're working predominantly with high school participants. So even with the My Initiative program, it is young youth designing and implementing their own youth-led community initiatives and projects to tackle issues of social justice in their immediate surroundings. And then with our My Voice alumni network, we take participants who've gone through the My Voice or the My Initiative program and provide them a space to practice their leadership skills, gain information on educational and professional opportunities, while supporting them with their community initiatives and helping them learn how to organize in a democratic structure. Last but not least, we have our youth conversations and panels and events, which is really a platform for young people to share their views and their perspectives and connect to different local decision-making spaces and institutions. We've hosted these sessions online and in person with one of our events last year as well. So just a little bit of background around our methodology in all our programs. It's all experiential based on Kolb's framework. So it's really a combination of group work, conversations, debates, reflective activities, just really creating a participatory learning space that allows our participants to develop individual and collective civic knowledge, civic skills, and civic dispositions. So a little bit about My Voice. So our My Voice 8-session leadership education program pretty much aims to develop the following skills: critical thinking, confidence and public speaking, debate and dialogue, leadership skills, awareness of the relevant national and global issues of social justice, understanding and knowledge to participate meaningfully in democracy, and really developing the youth's passion and capacity to lead positive social change. And what that looks like in terms of content, throughout the 8 sessions, we started off as a ripple, understanding that first it's the self, developing the self, helping them explore their identity, identifying their own biases, and then branching out and looking at how do they interact with others? What are their leadership styles? What is leadership? How can we effectively communicate with each other in dialogue and debate? And then branching out further to how do I interact with society? What are human rights and state forms? How can we practice in democracy and elections, and really mapping out social issues and identifying channels of participation in democracy, and then linking it to the global action and the SDGs. So really kind of exploring all our main key skills that we're hoping to develop throughout these 8 sessions. So a bit of numbers. Overall, since implementation, we've worked with over 950 participants over 4 provinces. Of that number, over 620 have taken part in the full My Voice program. We've mentored 32 youth initiatives. We've collaborated with over 30 partners and funders and trained 12 young facilitators. That's something that's really important for us in terms of relatability. We find that it's really important that the high school learners and young people that we work with are also are facilitated and the spaces held by other young people. Overall, we have 95% of our participants feeling transformed by the program. 97% of our participants share that they acquired knowledge with friends and family. And to date, we have about over 5,000 indirect beneficiaries throughout since the implementation of the program. So in conclusion, we really feel our work ties very well in several priority areas within the African Union Continental Framework, particularly the pillars on participation, prevention, and partnership and coordination. And really our recommendations in terms of the space and to create more spaces and more opportunities for organizations like myself and like the ones that are present in this room today is more funding directed towards civic engagement and peace building initiatives and organizations, and increased collaboration amongst different organizations and stakeholders on all levels, spaces such as these. and to facilitate the creation of roles and spaces for young people to take part in decision-making and not leaving high school learners out of that conversation. That's pretty much it from us. Thank you so much for your time. If you'd like to reach out to us, if you're interested in our work, please feel free to go onto our website, which is Engage South Africa, www.engagesa.com. If you'd love to collaborate with us, available via email. And we're also available on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube at My Voice South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gugu, for that presentation. And I liked that you had recommendations in your presentation, including collaboration, which is one of the reasons why we're having this session, to sort of map out who is doing what in the region and who needs to engage or partner with which organization. Before I'm accused of only inviting ladies to participate or speak to us today, I need to highlight that we had invited Dr. Phil Griffiths. He works for World Beyond War. They do training on peace building, and maybe what I can do is to ask him to share his presentation with us. Unfortunately, he's also in a different time zone, and because we started late, could not join us any longer. But I'll ask him to share his presentation with us. And given that we're also in a room that is full of peace builders that are on the ground, I'll also give one or two people online and in the room to share the work that they are doing. But before we get to that session, are there any questions for Gugu or those who want to work with My Voice and have specific questions regarding collaboration? Please feel free to raise. Okay, there are a couple of hands for South Africa, so we'll start with Mantate. Yes.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Gugu. I thought that was a very powerful presentation. I like the fact that you are very clear in terms of this is the challenge that's there, this is what we do, and also kind of just giving us a highlight of some of the ways in which you've managed to work with or transform young people. I think that was brilliant. So mine is not so much a question, but a reflection, but also potentially an extension of a request for collaboration. I run a similar program that's basically focused on young people within the arts sector. It's called Arts for Change, where we basically seek to build the capacity of young creatives, so musicians, filmmakers, comedians. So the idea is we have so much young people in the continent that are very talented. It's not just in the arts, but it's young people within STEM, young people in different sectors. So just being able to say, how do we get those young people to participate in democracy governance spaces, in peace building? Because sometimes if I'm in business or if I'm in the arts, there's always that question of where do I fit in? Democracy sounds very political for young people within civil society. So part of what we do is to ensure that we build the capacity of those young people to produce content that is of quality and can compete, but also to teach them about what does social justice look like, what does peace building look like. Then when they're able to go back in their communities and then create a song or a film that's in a local language, I think there's more power. So I kind of like the model that you use. And I think it would be great for us to kind of just have a conversation offline to see how we can collaborate and potentially bring in the creative arts aspect into your work, but also bring you on board into our Zim programming to see how we can, you know, create synergies and see how we can expand on the work. Yeah, that's just my comment.
Thank you very much. And I like that we are diversifying and becoming more innovative in our approach, where we're realizing that we cannot just speak about politics, democracy, and governance in the conventional way. How do we bring in people from the arts? How do we bring in musicians to actually engage? I remember one of the conversations we had with Dr. Fonte in Egypt, and he said to us, are you guys thinking of inviting Burna Boy? Because young people love to hear from Burna Boy, and why not have Burna Boy championing the peace and security agenda? So absolutely brilliant conversation that you brought to the table. And Gugu, I hope you'll be in touch, and then hopefully you guys will collaborate. Are there any questions, suggestions from those we have in the room? Okay, Mr. Masimba, you can take the floor.
Well, thanks very much, Kuku. Just out of interest, what are some of the barriers that you're getting or the pushbacks that you're getting from young people when you talk about peace and security? I mean, in the communities, what are some of the real issues that young people are talking to you about, and they think you should be addressing those instead?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Masimba. That is a really good question. And I think in terms of the work that we do, we don't explore in depth the peace and security aspect, but rather, should I say, we more so explore their direct concerns in our sessions. So issues around perhaps discrimination and how can they actively participate in their direct community around something like service delivery and how that can ultimately affect how they go to school and the safety within their communities. So things like that are issues that do come up at times in the communities that we work with. And with that being said, we try to use the tools that we have through the experience and through conversations within the sessions to unpack that and to explore channels of participation and to provide them with peaceful tools on how they can address these issues that are affecting them and how they can take action in their communities and engage other young people in a peaceful manner.
We can take, thank you so much, Gugu. I think your response highlighted the interconnectedness of issues such as discrimination, safety, hate speech, because we don't just wake up tomorrow with people carrying arms and they're in conflict. There are issues such as discrimination that actually lead up to this. In South Africa's case, xenophobia or prejudice, and we see these then morphing into violence at a later stage. So I think that is very important, and especially that you're also dealing with high scholars or young or students, because we can talk about youth, peace and security, but also there's a group before you become a young person, before you're 18. What are we doing to prepare individuals so that we have peaceful young adults? I'll take one last question from the room. If anyone online has got something to ask, then please just type it in the chat box, and then we will hear from 4H Zimbabwe before we wrap up.
Hi, Gugu. Congrats on the work that you're doing. My question is just, I just want to ask, what are some of the milestones and breakthroughs that your organizations have had in pushing the agenda, especially in a South African context where very often when we speak of peace building, you're dealing with root causes, you're dealing with the social issues, the prevention aspect of it before it actually escalates. And South Africa, for the most part, young people have the support they need, or at least that's what my impression would be. So I just want to know, what have been some of your breakthroughs and milestones, in some of the programs, and just how you involve yourself in the peace, Youth for Peace agenda. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. Immediately, when you mentioned what is the milestone, one of the biggest milestones happened quite recently for us, last year, and where we basically had an event for young people that we had worked with from different communities, different provinces here in South Africa, where they had gone through the My Voice program and the My Initiative program, and we gave them the opportunity to present the initiatives that they created, and at the end awarding the best 3 initiatives an award. And what was really, really inspiring about that work was to see how engaged young people are with just issues on a grassroots level. Like Cynthia mentioned, there are levels before violent protests begin. I mean, one of the initiative groups created an anti-bullying campaign where they created a box where they could address bullying and create it as a support group. And that comes through with hate discrimination, othering, and it was quite powerful to see them make use of the tools that were available to them, the social workers that were available at school, and to see them actively pursuing information that could better the experience, the learning experience for their fellow high school mates, and just to see them championing other high scholars to take part in the initiative. So we have a lot of those stories as well that are available on our Instagram page, actually, because we do showcase a lot of those initiatives that are successful and some that may be still ongoing. So I'm happy for you guys, for everyone present, to have a look at them, because it is quite inspiring to see just how capable young people are with the very little that they have, because a lot of them do come from disadvantaged communities, and how willing they are to participate and address social injustice, even at a grassroots level.
Thank you very much for the responses. I had said we'll close off the questions, but I noted Tapela wanted to ask, so please, if you can briefly just ask, and then we move on to the brief presentation by John.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity. I just wanted to find out how you are partnering with other youth-led organizations, and how you are also involving young people who have a passion in making a difference, but they're not running any organization. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, do you mind repeating the question?
All right, sure. So my question is, I just want to find out how you're partnering with other youth-led organizations, not only in South Africa, but as well as other countries like Zambia. I run an organization that helps young children with albinism, and I would like to know how you reach out to these organizations and partner with them. Also, the other question I asked is, how are you working with young people who are not running organizations, but they have a passion and have the zeal to make a difference? Thank you.
Okay, to answer your first question, how we working with, well, to answer the last question, how we're working with young people who are not necessarily running their own organizations is simply through our social media channels and through the different programs that we have. Like I mentioned, there is some information that we have, platforms like the Youth Conversation Space, which is open to all the young people that are connected to us and that can engage with our content online. And in terms of partnering with other organizations, we are currently looking at scaling mechanisms, as we only currently operate in South Africa, but we are looking forward to possibly operating internationally as well. So what that really looks like is exchanging contact details, email engagement, and seeing how best we can go about it. And like I mentioned in the recommendations, one of the key limitations sometimes with the scaling and working with organizations in different countries is normally the funding aspect, but we're always looking for opportunities to branch out, work with other organizations and collaborate and create an impact together.
Thank you so much, Gugu. I think that leaves it open that they're willing to engage. So perhaps if you're looking to do any work in Zambia, Tapela would be your contact person, because she already works in Zambia, and this is something you can take the conversation further after the webinar. The final presentation we're going to have will be from Mr. John. He's part of the 4H Zimbabwe initiative. He will share his work with us, but very briefly, because we're aiming to finish off the session in 1 hour 30, so that the room is utilized for another engagement. So we'll hand over to you, John, to share with us.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Mchenje. I'm the director of 4H Zimbabwe Foundation. It's a youth organization that is working with youth from all political parties in the country. We are trying to promote peace and political tolerance within the youth in Zimbabwe. We have seen that most of the politically motivated violence that usually erupt towards the elections is coming from the youth. And then we decided to engage the young people from different political parties. So far, we are working with the 6 main political parties in our country, which is ZANU-PF, CCC, MDCT, LEAD, NCA, and FIS. And more parties are coming on board. On our interventions, we have got 2 main programs that we are doing, which is the inter-party youth peace dialogues, where we are bringing in youth from different political parties, trying to capacitate them and engage them on appreciating the coexistence, that we might differ on our political affiliation, but that doesn't mean that we are enemies. We are trying to promote the culture of tolerance within the young people. And we are also doing some sports where we are using sport as a tool to promote tolerance in our country. Recently, I think in May, we did a successful sports tournament, which was attended by all political parties in our country, the youth league assemblies. And I think it went viral on social media, and we received quite a number of applause from different partners and also stakeholders. And we've engaged our partners to spread the tournaments to the provinces. And we're in the process of finalizing our budgets and also discussing with the parties and also relevant stakeholders to make sure that we spread the tournaments and reach to the provinces and also districts. Then also on top of that, we are also engaging other stakeholders in the peace initiative in Zimbabwe, which is the National Peace Reconciliation Commission. We are happy that we had a meeting with them and we're in the process of also doing an MOU with them to make sure that we spread our peace interventions in all districts in our country. We are also in the process of bringing in on board Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, the Home Affairs, and also the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Peace and Security. Through our work, our main focus is to come up with a Zimbabwe Youth Charter on the electoral process. We are happy that the charter is at AU level, and we'll be engaging you, Cynthia, and also the guys from the AU to make sure that we domesticate our charter in our Zimbabwean context. That will be a code of conduct for the youth participation in the electoral process, because we want young people to participate in the electoral process, but in a peaceful and a fair manner. That's why we want to domesticate that into Zimbabwean context. And if we are successful, we are going to be the first country to do that in the Southern Africa. And we are glad to that we are at an advanced stage. We had met all the legal teams from all the political parties, and we have received their buy-in in the process. And we are happy that by February, we should be launching that, and we are going to invite most of the southern countries to come and also witness the occasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John, for that presentation. And I really enjoyed the fact that you stressed that as young people, we may have different political views and different political affiliations, but there's really need for tolerance amongst each other and amongst the different participants. And we're not just within the pre and post-election period, but throughout our engagements, we have to be civil, we have to be tolerant. And as much as you highlighted that, what I also picked on is the importance of the role of political parties and governments in the youth peace and security agenda. It's really an agenda that should leave no one behind. So all stakeholders should be involved. What I will do in the meanwhile, I will drop a link to the Youth for Peace Africa network, the Youth Peace and Security Network for Southern Africa. We've been hearing people sharing the initiatives that they do. There are opportunities for collaboration, and you also get to engage and interact with other young people that are working either in Zambia, Namibia, Botswana, South Africa. So please, if you would like to be part of the network, use the link that I shared in the group to join the conversation. And we will take some questions for John on the presentation that he shared on maybe how they've managed to do it in Zimbabwe. Should you want to have the same initiatives in your own country, or if you're Zimbabwean and you want to be a part of this. So please, if you have any questions, please share them with us. Thank you. There's a couple of Zimbabweans in the room that were very quick to grab that opportunity. I'll I'll start off. Tino, you spoke before, so let's start with somebody who hasn't shared. So we'll start at the back. Thank you.
As a student leader, say I have noted that many of the political violences which erupts in Zimbabwe, especially comes from student unions such as Zikosu and Zinasu. So can there be a room for their involvement in your advocacy work?
Okay, I'll take that question. My name is Ruth Chomola. I'm the project officer for Zimbabwe Foundation. So as we started the intervention, we realized that the youth are not only confined to political parties. The representation of the youth goes beyond that. And so in our development of the project, we also are introducing interventions that directly attest to student activists. We also have representation even from the political parties, where they are actually taking their activists from the teacher institutions to also be part of our conversations. So at every discussion, at every meeting, we ensure that the representation of the students' movement, representation of women, representation of other communities within the youth demography. So yes, so far we've been working with Zinasu and Zikosu from University of Zimbabwe, and also we're trying to partner with organizers for your annual sports to also be part of them, to also be able to push the Youth for Peace mantra, because we're saying we're using sport as an entry point because other means may be a challenge, but for sport usually tends to be unifying our communities. And so this is our entry point, and we are actually enrolling more and more youth from across the different divides that already exist in our demography. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruth. I'm not sure if John wants to add to that, but yeah, if you'd like to.
Yeah, I think Ruth answered it well. I think it was clear. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take 2 more questions from the room. Let's start with the lady behind me, next to Masimba.
Okay, thank you. My name is Edith Masango from Zimbabwe. My question to you, John, since your organization is working with youths from different political parties, I just want to find out, when you started this program, did you have difficulties in putting together youths from different political parties working together and in harmony? What was the strategy that was used, and did people actually have confidence in you when you wanted to work with the youth from different political parties? Thank you.
Thank you very much. At first, it was a hassle. We actually started the crafting of the proposal last year in June, and then we started the implementation this year in January. So you can see that it took about 6 months to agree with this. We also managed to do trainings for peace ambassadors, 25 from each political party. But at first, they said we can't do them in one room. So we're doing separate trainings. But after we trained them and they've appreciated and also understanding the tolerance, the political tolerance issue, they said, can we start doing programs together jointly? So we are happy that the trainings that we had and also the engagement that we had separately from these political parties, we've managed to make sure that we are now doing our things together under one roof. But at first, it was very difficult. And also in terms of the trust, there is no political party which was trusting us. If you go to party B, they were saying you've been sent. If you go to party A, they'll be saying other things. So I think it took about 6-7 months for the parties to really appreciate that we have got a genuine cause which we are pushing to make sure that we have got a peaceful election in our country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we'll take the final question.
Okay, hello, good afternoon. I'm Delilah. So my question is mainly on the inclusion of young women in such spaces. because one of your main thrusts is in sport. And if you look at it, not a lot of young women are really active participants, even as just, you know, passers by in a sports game. So how are you going to make sure that while most of the perpetrators are men, there is need to include women as well, not just as the victims, but also as people who coexist with these young men in the same environment. So how are you going to include the young women in the processes that you're doing to make sure that we have a unified goal at the end of the day? Thank you.
Right. Thank you. I'll answer that one for you. As a fellow young woman, I'm glad to say in most of our meetings, the leaders are young women from the political parties to start with. So we are represented in that regard. And also for the sports intervention, it's one of the strategies we're employing because we're including it as part of our strategies. And also even for the sports that we had in Harare, there were a lot of women, actually, they're young women. We had netball, and it was actually more interesting than soccer because this is where we had our young member of parliaments, our young councillors, women, spearheading the conversations, leading the teams, and we had a fair competition. So basically what you're saying is the representation of young women is there because even in our discussions, we appreciate how young women were left out because when we say empowerment of women, there's a bracket of women. When you say empowerment of youth, there's a bracket of youth. And then when we're saying youth, it's mainly for the males. When we're saying women, it's mainly for the women, the older women. Then there's that sector where we're saying the young women, we tend to be excluded and our representation is minimal because the assumptions are represented from the women and the youth. So for this intervention, we're happy to say even the representation that we're getting from the parties, young women are equally represented. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruth, for that response, and we're happy to see that young women are represented. You're a very capable young woman, and we've been engaging with her throughout the discussions here in Harare. There is one final question that we got from Ishane Suchi Koto online, and it is that what more are you doing to English conscientize? Whew, okay. That took a while. So what more are you doing to conscientize the youth that are not from a place of privilege, where they have limited access to the internet? So this is the digital gap. How are you making sure that they are not continually marginalized because political intolerance affects everyone? So this is the question for Ruth and John.
Thank you. So what you're realizing is, like I said before, youth, we are only not found in political parties. We've got youth in communities. We really have no interest in those issues. So as an organization, as we are pushing for the charter on electoral processes for the youth participation, and also pushing for the dialogues with the youth leadership for the political parties that are got the majority of the youth, we are also going to communities and engaging at community level. Recently, we had a community engagement in Mzarabani. This is whereby we're having communities who actually are divorced from really what's happening mainstream. So we went to that community, we had sports there. The outcome was great. We had 4 villages represented there. And there we were able to talk about issues for Youth for Peace. And also at that forum, the community also raised issues that are affecting them, such as school dropouts, substance abuse, early child marriages. And these are also issues we're saying they're affecting the youth. And they specifically pertain to them and said, we also need assistance in that regard. So we just don't go to communities. When we gather this information, we also try to partner with relevant authorities because we're saying, for us, our main issue is youth empowerment and youth development. So we want to end there. We want to make sure that all aspects, like we've been saying throughout this process, that poverty is also a factor to these issues. It's a threat to our peace and security. And so let's take a holistic approach when dealing with these issues and include all other factors that we come across as our interventions.
Thank you so much, Ruth. And because one of the participants, Shanice, highlighted access to the internet. Data is also very expensive, and we've kept you online for an hour 30, so we need to wrap up. Some of the conversations will continue in the room, but if you have someone that's in the chat box and you want to engage with them, please feel free to continue these conversations beyond what we're having here in Harare. And maybe just to note some of the takeaways from the time we started with the presentations up to now, is that Fafali, we've requested that you share your presentation with us, and we'll also put you in touch with Masimba, and then you two can map out the way forward in terms of your collaboration. And then to finally close this session, we started off with remarks from Dr. Rooks Ako, who is the Senior Analyst and also Coordinator of the Youth for Peace Africa program at the African Union. We'll ask Ms. Suraya Ibrahim to give us the closing remarks, and this will be the end of our session. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us online or physically here in Harare. I sincerely appreciate it, and please join the WhatsApp group online for further engagement. Ms. Suraya, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you everyone for joining us, like virtually or physically here. Thank you for the very, very fruitful discussion we had. Thank you for all comments and participants in this session. Hopefully to see you in more engagement in the future. Thank you, Cynthia, for the hard work you are doing all the time. And yes, thank you so much for everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone. This is the end of our session. Please feel free to keep in touch and hopefully to engage with us. And also colleagues from Kenya, thank you so much for joining us, Angel. Thank you. Bye.